so everybody's mostly here. Yeah, so my name's Will Holcomb, and my assignment was to talk about the middle way in 5 minutes. So I'll do my best with that. But I want to say I really appreciate the previous talks. Rosan, Daigaku, Venerable, I really appreciate those. So we're going to start with a little exercise. This won't be real vigorous, but there's parts of it that some of you may have difficulty with. And if you do, I want you to just sort of imagine the exercise and not actually do it, because I don't want anybody falling over. So what we'll do is start off by standing up with feet at shoulder width and the arms to the side, and relax, the knees slightly bent, and just feel that position for a minute. And then I would like you to just shift your hip over towards your left leg and just lift your right foot off the ground and see what that feels like. And if you have to put your foot down, go right ahead. But it feels different, and imagine that it wouldn't take very much to knock you over. A good wind or somebody giving you a slight push. Okay, now you're back on both feet. Okay, feels better, comfortable. And now I'd like you to shift your hips over to the right foot. Lift your left foot up and see what that's like. Is that different? Is that better or worse? But now come back, both feet on the ground. Feels more comfortable. And now I'd like you to just take with your right foot, go back about half step and turn your foot out about 45 degrees, kind of like you're in an archery pose. And with your knees slightly bent, just shift your weight, leading with your hips, over your left foot, about 70% of your weight on your left foot, and then shift back towards your right foot, about 70% of your weight on your right foot, and then come back to center. And we'll do that, the mirror image of that. Just take your left foot, come out back half a step, turn your foot to the side, knees slightly bent, bring your weight over your right foot, and then over your left foot, about 70% of your weight, and then back to center. Okay, I hope the significance of this becomes clear. But the very first words that the Buddha spoke after his awakening was about extremes. And he was speaking to his friends who had been ascetics in the woods and in the forest, and he said to them that you should avoid extremes. Chasing after sensual pleasures, which the Buddha was familiar with from his former life, he said was just kind of gross, vulgar, unprofitable. And then he said, avoiding all pleasures, just sort of mortifying the flesh, this was painful, it's ignoble, it's unprofitable. So what he recommended was the middle way. And the middle way he defined as the Eightfold Path. So what's the Eightfold Path? I know you're all familiar with this. The Eightfold Path is forming intentions based on an accurate view of things. A view that takes into account that everything is interdependent. You, me, the other people in the park, the grass, the trees, as Rosan was talking about, the sunlight, everything, interdependent. That's part of it. The next part is being careful with your speech, action, and livelihood to be of benefit to yourself and others. Beneficial speech, beneficial action, beneficial livelihood. And finally, a commitment to develop mental focus and mental attention developing an earnest attention to the situation that's arising at any given time. So that's sort of a version of the eightfold path. Now, the middle way sets aside self-absorption, sets aside seeking pleasures, avoiding pleasures, and instead substitutes trying to be of benefit to oneself and others. The middle path is about accepting rice and milk when it's offered you. The middle path is about offering rice and milk when you can to others. The middle way is not a compromise. It's a third alternative. It's intended to lead to tranquility, peace, and ease, but it's not always comfortable along the way. It's not always easy, and it's not always peaceful. From time to time, it's necessary to shift your weight in order to deal with complications that arise, difficulties that arise. So the Buddha generally avoided extremes. He didn't, and when people would be arguing about extreme philosophical positions, he would often remain silent or divert the conversation. For instance, when there was an argument about, well, do things really exist, or does nothing exist? In response to that, he talked about how suffering arises, how sorrow, lamentation, pain, distress, and despair arise, all from ignorance through a series of steps. And he also talked about how reversing that process, dispelling ignorance, can lead to relief of sorrow, lamentation, distress, and despair. So right now, in this time in history, we're living in a time where afflicted with extremes. There are many people who are standing on one foot and encouraging others to do likewise. I think at this time it's all the more important to remember these early teachings of the Buddha and to keep both feet on the ground, shifting weight as needed to address issues as they arise, but to respond to situations that do arise with open eyes and an open heart. That to me is the middle path. Thank you.